Devim Saraswati Vyasa Tato Nashta Preshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike. Good morning, dear devotees. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 19. And, text number 5. Marjavatarashtviham martya shikshanam rakshavadya eva nakevalam vibho kutonyathasyat ramatasva atmana sita kritani vyasana nishvarasya. Word-to-word translation. Just a second, I'll switch on this heater. Okay. Word-to-word translation. Martya is a human being. Avatara, whose okay, lost the connection. Ravata, where is it? Ramata of the enjoying, Sve in himself, Atmanaha, the spiritual identity of the universe, Sita of the wife of Lord Ramachandra, Kritani appearing due to the separation, Vyasanani all the miseries, Ishvarasya of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation. It was ordained that Ravana, chief of the Rakshasas, could not be killed by anyone but a man. Now, for this reason, Lord Ramachandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appeared in the form of a human being. Lord Ramachandra's mission, however, was not only to kill Ravana, but also to teach mortal beings that material happiness centered around sex life or centered around one's wife is the cause of many miseries. He is the self-sufficient Supreme Personality of Godhead, and nothing is lamentable for him. Therefore, why else could he be subjected to tribulations by the kidnapping of Mother Sita? When the Lord appears in this universe, in the form of a human being, he has two purposes, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.9, Paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya chadushkritam, to destroy the demons and to protect the devotees. To protect the devotees, the Lord not only satisfies them by his personal presence, but also teaches them, so that they will not fall down from the devotional service. By his personal example, Lord Ramachandra taught the devotees that it is better not to enter married life, which is certainly followed by many tribulations. As confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 7.9.45. Yat maithunadi grihamedhi sukham hitucham kandu yanena karayor iva dukkha dukkam Ripyanti neha kripana bahu dukkha bhajam kandu tivan manasijam vishaheta dhira. Kripanas, those who are not advanced in spiritual knowledge, and who are therefore just the opposite of brahmanas, generally take to family life, which is a concession for sex. Thus they enjoy sex again and again, although that sex is followed by many tribulations. This is a warning to devotees, to teach this lesson to devotees and to human society in general. Lord Sri Ramachandra, although the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, underwent a series of tribulations because he accepted a wife, Mother Sita. Lord Ramachandra underwent these austerities, of course, only to instruct us Actually, he never has any reason to lament for anything. Another aspect of the Lord's instructions is that one who accepts a wife must be a faithful husband and give her full protection. Human society is divided into two classes of men, those who strictly follow the religious principles and those who are devotees. We wish that this is the two classes of men in society today. By his personal example, Lord Ramachandra wanted to instruct both of them how to fully adopt the discipline of the religious system and how to be a beloved and dutiful husband. Otherwise, he had no reason to undergo apparent tribulations. One who strictly follows religious principles must not neglect to provide all facilities for the complete protection of his wife. There may be some suffering because of this, but one must nevertheless endure it. That is the duty of a faithful husband. By his personal example, Lord Ramachandra demonstrated his duty. Lord Ramachandra could have produced hundreds and thousands of Sitas from his pleasure energy. But just to show the duty of a faithful husband, he not only rescued Sita from the hands of Ravana, but also killed Ravana and all the members of his family. Another aspect of the teachings of Lord Ramachandra is that although Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his devotees may apparently suffer from material tribulations, they have nothing to do with such tribulations. They are Mukta Purushas, liberated persons, under all circumstances. It is therefore said in the Chaitanya Bhagavata, Yatta dehe Vaishnavera Vyavahara Dukkha Nishtaya Janihataha Paramananda Sukha. A Vaishnava is always firmly situated in transcendental bliss because of engagement in devotional service. Although he may appear to suffer material pains, his position is called transcendental bliss in separation, vivaha. The emotions a lover and beloved feel when separated from one another are actually very blissful, although apparently painful. Therefore, the separation of Lord Ramachandra and Sita Devi, as well as the consequent tribulation they suffered, is but another display of transcendental bliss. That is the opinion of Srila Vishnavada Chakravarti Thakur. End of the purport. Verse again, Martyavataраства ihamartya shikshanam raksho vadhyaiva nakal kevalam vibho kuto natyasyat ramatasva atmana sita kritani vyasanani shvarasya. It was ordained that Ravana, chief of the Rakshasas, could not be killed by anyone but a man, and for this reason Lord Ramachandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appeared in the form of human being. Lord Ramachandra's mission, however, was not only to kill Ravana, but also to teach mortal beings that material happiness centered around sex life or centered around one's wife is the cause of many miseries. He is the self-sufficient Supreme Personality of Godhead, and nothing is lamentable for him. Therefore, why else could he be subjected to tribulations by the kidnapping of Mother Sita? Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Yanandana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayarupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamshtam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Tamvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priyam Panchakalpa Tarubhishya Kripa sindhubheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunavadi Paschatya Shatanine. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome to a special Srimad Bhagavatam class, and even more auspicious that it is on Advent of Appearance Day of Lord Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya ki jai. So today we read another beautiful verse from the island of Jambudvip, and this time we are discussing the tract of land called Kimpurusha, right? I think it's Kimpurusha. Tract of land, and Kimpurusha literally means land of the monkeys. And in that land of the monkeys, that those not ordinary monkeys, they looked almost like human beings. There's one resident, a few residents, and one of them is Hanuman, the best of the devotees from that particular beings. And as Bhagavad Gita instructs us in 321, and I quote, Yadyata charishta shrestast tattadevataro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokastat anuvartate. Wherever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he says by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. And in this verse in Bhagavad Gita, it's very instructive verse, very related to the subject matter that we are reading in the last almost a month now, that every resident of Jambudvip, specifically the leaders of those particular tracts of land, they are praising the Lord, the form of the Lord, the avatar of the Lord that they specifically attracted to. And so they've been an example as leaders, they've been devotees. As a leader devotee, they show an example how to glorify constantly the Lord. And in this way, by their personal example, they teach in others how to follow that example, how to become a devotee of the Lord. And so that naturally everyone else follows. So now we get into the Ramachandra's pastimes, where they're not ordinary pastimes, of course, as all the pastimes of the Lord. Lord Ramachandra is called Maryada Purushottam, which literally means that he's the one who sets the standard of moral codes and behavior, and an ideal example, so ideal that nobody else can follow to that degree. This is extremely ideal example, right? But still, one has to set some golden standard to which everyone should be inclining to, referring to, uh, leaning towards, to trying to follow in the footsteps like that. Not imitate, of course, because this is extreme examples. And of course, the extreme part of it we know is that, well, there are few extreme moments in Ramayana, and the Ramayana that we read today, in an abbreviated version, is an abbreviated version that maybe we have access to. The Ramayana is 25,000 verses, which is more than in Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam we have 18,000 verses, and Ramayana is bigger, is larger. And, there's a lot of turning points in Ramayana which are tearing the heart this will be an austerity for the mind, but because, as we know, mode of goodness, right? First is poison, then it's bliss. So once the person is actually absorbed his mind in those pastimes, then it's naturally and easy to think about those pastimes and then consequently talk about the pastimes, because austerity of the speech is also study the Vedic literature. So it's actually all interconnected, austerity of the body, mind, and speech and mind, although it starts from the mind. So unless we absorb our mind in such pastimes, then what are we going to think about it? Most likely about sense enjoyment and so forth and so forth. And the consequent results talk about this sense enjoyment, whatever the form it has, and then eventually we will do that. We will act on that, right? So those three austerities of body, speech, and mind are interconnected. And so here's a perfect example of Lord Ramachandra. So why is it perfect example? So I just want to focus on that one specific point, the end of the drama, which is supposed to be a happy ending. And, there you go, they returned. Even Mother Sita went through the Agni test, that she went through the fire. She proved that she's chaste and never been, basically even touched by Ravana, and she's always been faithful to him. So nobody had any doubt. They peacefully and prosperously ruled or governed Ayodhya for 2 years. 2 years of bliss, finally, the victory, finally the peace, finally the best king and the best queen. Still, at some point, the spies that Lord Ramachandra was sending to find out, what is he finding out? Why is he sending spies? Not because there's some conspiracy going on and he has to, counteract. Everybody loves him, but he wants a feedback to improve. He always, as a perfect leader, he's always seeking for feedback to improve his behavior, his ruling, his governing. That's what Ramachandra is after. Lord Ramachandra is after. He's after constant improvement of his ideal example. And spies tell him, you always glorify, you're the best king, you're ruling so nicely, you're so just, you're so caring, you're so fatherly, you're so devoted, and so forth. And yet one day the one washerman chastising his wife, he says, don't, I'm not like Lord Ramachandra, that I would accept you as a, if you've been with another man and like that. So that feedback gets to Lord Ramachandra, and he does an unprecedented thing. She's already pregnant, right? Mother Sita. And so he sends her, banishes her, sends her to the ashram. It's not like he banishes her, it's a divorce, you go out and, do whatever you like. It's not like that. He banishes her to a shelter, to a place where Valmiki Muni and other ascetic ladies also live. So she wasn't there alone. She was in a good, taken good care, but, it was an austerity. Another austerity, another drama, another turning point, and love and separation, and all those things. So it's very, very difficult to comprehend. Yet, Lord Ramachandra does it for only one single purpose. He wants to show, from his perspective as a ruler and governor, he wants to show perfect example, as I said, not for imitation. But he sets it for the benefit of, of all beings, of all his kinsmen, that they can follow a perfect leader, right? So, and there is a teaching lessons that are described today in this verse about, the 3 points that Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that Lord Ramachandra teaching us. And I just want to focus still on this feedback point. It's very important, if we would get some feedback like this, say, for example, 99% are glorifying us and saying we're doing the right thing, and then 1%, one person, unqualified person, says something, which doesn't even, it doesn't even deserve or respect that person. But a saintly person or an honest person, a leader, would still listen and see if there's a grain of truth, so to say. If that's Lord speaking to him to improve. For example, when Brahmananda Prabhu tells this story of how Srila Prabhupada was sick and had another heart attack and had to go even to hospital. So before that, they were trying to get the doctors, and there was no doctors around. It was Thanksgiving weekend. Everybody went out of New York, so he was trying, he was calling, he was asking devotees, and eventually some family doctor that was assigned by a kind of a government system of healthcare provider, so he reached one of those. So that person came. He wasn't really, he came and he was like, trying to figure out what's going on, all of those strange people wearing strange clothes and barefoot and, and then there's this a strange man in saffron robes, supposed to check him out. And so he did. And so he went to the other room. Brahmananda was saying, so, what's going on? What's wrong? And he says, the doctor says, man is praying too much, he needs to go for a walk. Do something, just do exercise. He sits there, prays all day long. Nothing wrong about praying all day long. It's actually a perfection of life. It's a sadhu's life. They pray in Kirtaniya Sadahari. But his point was valid, although he was not, much respectful and he was even tipsy or something. He wasn't really. He was, from materialism perspective, he wouldn't listen to this doctor too much. But Srila Prabhupada did. He listened from the other room. And when he heard this, even though he had to undergo the further tribulations of going to the hospital like that and getting out of being kidnapped back from the hospital, he said when he got better, he said that doctor actually said a good thing, And since that day, Srila Prabhupada took his instruction, took his feedback, and never missed one day of walking the morning walk conversations. And we have about 1,000 recordings, but also literally and physically, he was actually doing those morning exercises. From then on, it became part of his sadhana. So one can say, why would he listen? But even if it's like his junior, sometimes he would listen to his disciples, giving him an advice. Once Prabhupada exhibited certain anger about how the preparations for the deity installation was wrong, and that was missing, and that was wrong, and then one disciple said, by seeing Prabhupada angry, he thought, Mahamantra calms the mind down. And so he said to Prabhupada, a disciple said to Srila Prabhupada, said, maybe you should chant Hare Krishna. Somehow he phrased it that maybe you should chant Hare Krishna and like calm down. So Prabhupada took these and sat down and started to chant Hare Krishna, right? So first of all, it's incorrect to instruct spiritual master, and spiritual master is not obliged to follow what his disciple is saying, but Srila Prabhupada did. So he thought it's good advice, to chant Hare Krishna. So he did like this. So, and of course, so those statements that I mentioned here in this verse may seem sometimes heavy, especially in the modern day environment. People say, why a woman is always like a Maya, and why, its sex life is always she's blamed. It's not like that. Srila Prabhupada says in another purpose in Srimad Bhagavatam that the same way how men are Maya to woman, the same woman are Maya to men. It's like exact thing. You just, twist turn the roles, and that's it. It's the same thing. So in the same way, as husband gives protection to the wife, as glorified here in the purport, as a dutiful, responsible husband, actually in the same way, the wife gives protection to the husband, if that's a proper grihastha ashram, right? So it's actually, ashram means shelter, ashraya, it gives shelter. A human being without a shelter Okay, while this computer is setting up, I'm trying to set up from my phone. I don't know what's going on. Devotees, next time I'll give you Srimad Bhagavatam class from home, because this is pathetic. So, right. So ashram. Ashram is shelter, ashray. And in each ashram we take shelter. It's a safe place to practice. As Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says in Antilila, 1st chapter, 2nd verse, he says, my path is very, very difficult, right? I'm blind and my feet are slipping again and again. Therefore, may the saints help me by granting me the stick of their mercy as the support, as my support. So we're relying on devotees around us to help us and guide us. Guidance means one knows the goal of life. And so this is, am I heard? There's a comment. A human being without shelter. Yes, a human being without shelter is having a difficult situation. He is fragile. He may slip and fall off the path of devotional service. That's why the Lord shows the path for the devotees so they don't slip off. And that's why he gives them the shelter of devotees around them. So every ashram means you're surrounded by devotees in every ashram, whether it's brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas ashram, you're surrounded by devotees who are helping you along the way, whether it's your friends or family members, devotees, like that. So we need to take shelter, learn to take shelter of the ashram. And of course, brahmacharya ashram is very much more simpler. There's less tribulations, because in one sense, there's less responsibilities. You're just responsible for your study, and then you preach and inspire others. But you're not directly responsible for a bigger circle of society. Like grihasthas are more responsible, have more responsibility because they're responsible for their family and children. And elderly grandparents, like that. So it's a higher responsibility. Vanaprastha, they teach, they share their wisdom with a larger circle of the area where they reside. So they take in even more responsibility to guide many grihasthas and even teach brahmacharis. And then sannyasis are responsible even more because they are renunciates. So wherever they go, they teach. So they start giving shelter almost, you can say, to the whole world. There are even such levels of sannyasas, sannyas order of life. So it's always about increased responsibility. So recently I was speaking to one of my friends, just to give an example of this tribulation. So Ram and Sita, they're such an ideal character, such an ideal character. But even though being ideal and super pious and devotees, still they go in through tribulations, like Pandavas do. They go in through tribulations, even though they're saints. That's why even Bhishmadev is crying for how many tribulations they're going through. And even it gets to the point that even Kunti Devi prays for more tribulations. Unparalleled, So I spoke to one of my friends recently, a very good devotee. He's a BBT editor and such a pious man, and such a learned brahmana, such a wonderful devotee, and still, the tribulations are coming his way. He has 4-year-old daughter, and recently they were trying to sell a house to reside closer, to buy another house from devotee to be very close to the farm, just to raise the child in a kindergarten with other children devotees, and be closely connected, have a better sadhana, in reach to the main deities of the area, serve the deities. That's what brahmanas do. Brahmanas are studying the scriptures and teaching the scriptures. They are engaged in the worship of deities and teaching the worship of deities. And they may take, they don't need to, but they may take the donations, and then they should spend the donations that they get, engaged in Krishna service. So those are the rightful, the brahmanas, the good brahmana. And he really qualifies for that real brahmana. It's interesting how Srila Prabhupada says talking about 17th chapter, the austerity of the body. I wonder how it's in English, because I remember it in Russian, but I'm just going to quote quickly the verse 14. One should offer or learn to offer respect to God or to the demigods, the perfect qualified brahmanas. So not just to brahmanas, but the perfect qualified brahmanas. One should offer respects, you know. So we know in Nectar of Instruction, it says that we pay our obeisances to all living entities, but to neophyte devotees, we pay obeisances in mind, just not to spoil them, you know, just to allow them to grow in their devotion and bhakti and not to take it on their account, but we actually, so that, you know, we pay an obeisance so they're so good. So we don't allow their pride to flourish, and rather we help them along the way. But when the perfect is a perfect qualified brahmana, surely we pay obeisances, you know, to the mature devotees, physically paying obeisances, respecting them in all ways, hearing them from them and learning from them, like that. So this is the idea. Okay, since my computer came back, I'll try to re-log in so you have a better sound. And so my friend, he okay. So my friend, no, it should be better. So my friend, he had you know, he has a tough period. So he tried to sell the house, but he went through the devotees to sell the house, but the buyer, he was a professional cheater. So what he did, he got the lawyers and special, not the lawyers, but special agency who came to inspect the house, and that person specifically was saying, this is wrong in your house, this is wrong, this is wrong. So the actual price of the house should be like 30% less, right? But you already signed the contract, so they are the buyers. So he was trying to deduct, so that specific company tried to deduct the price by 30% so that they can share the profit of, say, 10 extra percent or whatever they would agree between the buyer and that company that they work with together in buying such houses. So they started to what's the word in English? I forgot the word in English. Anyway, so they tried to manipulate. They tried to say, if you don't, you know, vacate the house, you know, we will send, like that. So they're trying to create a lot of pressure. So this devotee was studying his master's degree. He finished all the papers, but he just needed to finish the thesis on Madhvacharya, actually, a very nice thesis. He studied Indology. So, so because of those tribulations of this house, so he nearly lost the house. It almost went to the court. So somehow through the law company, he managed to get it back and not sell it for this ridiculous amount of money that they started to impose on him. And so everything got back to normal, but he lost like half a year in a lot of anxieties, a lot of tribulations. He lost a lot of money, and now he cannot finish his thesis because it's only 4 months left before the end of the deadline. And if he is about to prolong it by another year, he needs to pay money because the free time has expired, given by the university. So if he wants to expire it more, he has to pay, and big money pay, not just small. So anyway, and of course at the universities, you know, because it's an Indology faculty in the Charles University, the best university in Prague, you know, these guys are all Mayavadis. They even know Sanskrit worse than he does, you know, but he studied in Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu's school. He's really scholarly. But, you know, and so, you know, so there's a lot of tribulation that happens in his life. Yet his wife is so pious. His hymns are so pious. Like so learned brahmanas, such a nice devotee, so nice servants, such a wonderful child. Yet they have to go through all of these crises. So those crises are inevitable in our lives, in whatever ashram we are. But imagine the higher responsibility you bear, the more difficult in terms of mind pressure you experience, because you know you're the father, you're responsible for the child, you're responsible for the wife, and like that. Especially for him, his wife is from India and they live in Czech Republic, and so it's you know, it's harder for her. She doesn't know Czech language, so it's not like she can go and get the job easy like this. So it's like a double pressure, double pressure he goes through. And it's just one example. I know so many families, devotees, non-devotees, they're going through those tribulations, and the higher responsibility, the harder the tribulations, especially that you have this responsibility, especially for the little children and like that, or for the wives and like. So it's a hard world. And Ramachandra says, even if you're God yourself, there is this material world, and even if it's not Kali Yuga, even if it's Treta Yuga, still such crises and tribulations happen, unavoidable, and it's hard. So so there's like a different. But if say, okay, if you married, if you not remain brahmachari, naishtika brahmachari, then you married. But then if you married, it's not like you give up your wife, and when tribulations come, you become faithful husband and go through this. That old Ramachandra did it through the whole time. And of course, the last point, as I was mentioning, when he banished her, he didn't banish her like you go wherever you like. He banished her to an ashram, to a shelter. But he had a higher duty and responsibility to continue showing it, being an ideal example. He never remarried, right? He didn't even actually even, in one sense, went to Vanaprastha ashram because he was still married. He just continued ruling, but with his wife being separately situated. And Srila Prabhupada finishes the purport with those higher emotions, saying that devotees, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quoting him, separation of Lord Ramachandra from Sita Devi as well as consequent tribulation they suffered is but another display of transcendental bliss. It's very difficult to understand for us. When we read Krishna's pastimes, those separation leelas, sometimes you think, what a nightmare, what Krishna is doing to them, he's so cruel. But actually, they never satisfied. The gopis and any, Vrindavan Rajavasis, they're never satisfied by Krishna being present. They always want more of him, even if he's right in front of them. In fact, when he's in front of them, they have the fear of separation that is coming soon. So there's an anxiety even when he's present. So actually, when they're separated, the intensity of their longing for him is higher, so the degree is higher, and so this Vipralamba Seva is actually considered the highest bliss, transcendental bliss. So actually, he's doing the best thing he can do, leaves them. That's his gift. So it's very hard to understand from material platform, because for us, separation is a disaster, right? Usually. Right. So I would like to stop here because we're running out of time. But if there's comments or questions that you have, please, we are open to that now. Maybe I'll just summarize points while you are thinking about the question or comment. So the points I was making, Hare Krishna Taraka Prabhu. Sorry, if you want to speak, you can go on speaking.
Yeah, this issue of separation doesn't seem to me to be so difficult to understand, because what happens in separation, and it's a simple process that the mechanics of it is that in separation, that the natural tendency is that you become absorbed in thought on that individual that you are separated from. So the meditation is intensified, very, very substantially intensified. And so it becomes a very ecstatic process. It's very intensive meditation. If one is separated from Krishna, to be meditating on Krishna is my point is that the intensity of the meditation on Krishna is actually never greater than when one is separated from Krishna.
I cannot hear.
You can't hear?
The thing I heard is meditation on Krishna. Anybody here, Starka Prabhu? Anybody hears me?
Crickets.
I can hear.
All right, hearing is going on. If you want to fill up remaining minutes, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur offers a very nice commentary. It's a little advanced, but it's interesting to hear. 3 paragraphs if you're interested. All right, I'm just going to go ahead. He says, yeah, I've lost my place here. How does Rama appear in the material world? He appeared in the world with a human form, not only for killing Ravana, but to teach human beings. These humans were of 2 types, those who followed Dharma and the devotees. Rama appeared in order to teach Dharma by showing his nature of following Dharma, and to teach Prema by showing how he was controlled by Prema. Otherwise, why would the Lord, the enjoyer, the Paramatma, in his Swarupa, experience suffering caused by separation from Sita? A follower of Dharma would never ignore his chaste wife and would tolerate suffering because of her. To teach this, he showed suffering in himself. That is the first point. How could he lament in separation from Sita? These symptoms, which only have the appearance of suffering, arise from the taste of Vipralambha rasa, love in separation, in the Sthayi bhava of prema. This rasa is actually the highest bliss. It would be a contradiction if suffering were present in someone who is Atmarama, self-satisfied. One should not say, if Rama is self-satisfied, how can he enjoy Sita? Sita is part of himself, since she arises as Sarup Shakti. If Sita is part of his Sarupa, then why should he experience separation? By a particular function of the Chit Shakti, by the great power known as Prema, the one supreme tattva remains divided in 2 parts without beginning in time. One part is bliss with 6 powers, and the other part is pure bliss. The first part is called the Supreme Lord, and the second is called the devotee. Then again, by 4 functions of his prema, the second tattva divides into 4: servants, friends, elders, and lovers. The first tattva, the Lord, is established in terms manifestation of these different types of bhavas of the devotees. When jivas of the material world, by good fortune, begin practicing this type of bhakti, and their bhakti becomes mature, prema appears on its own. Placing the jivas into those moods as servant, friend, parent, or lover, prema then brings them to the eternal world at the appropriate time with these bhavas, such as dasya, and pervades them with these 4 types of love. By prema, they attain a sthayi bhava, and by vibhavas, anubhavas, and sanchari bhavas, which arise by the power of prema alone, prema becomes rasa. Then prema makes the 2 tattvas experience their natures as vishaya and ashraya. And by meeting and separation occurring by the will of prema, a person experiences happiness and sorrow. The devotees experience the most astonishing bliss by tasting the unparalleled, most extraordinary sweetness of prema. Those who are not devotees, however, will say that Rama and Krishna experienced great suffering. Others will say that Rama imitated suffering for teaching the jivas. In this way, they are bewildered. That's the end of its commentary. And that brings us to exactly 8 o'clock. Hare Krishna. You are.
Would you like
there
to
you go.
quickly comment, Tarika Prabhu? There is still a minute or 2 we have. Tarika Prabhu?
I'm sorry, my computer is give me trouble. I have nothing more to comment other than to thank you for a very nice and engaging class. Always appreciate your classes. Very nice. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, and all glories to Sri Advaitacharya. Hare
Jai.
Krishna.
We're gonna hear more devotees. Please tune in via Zoom or come in person. Ideally, you come in person. There's a class by His Grace Purushottam Kshetra Prabhu, and known as Puru Prabhu. People know the short names, but not the long names. So it starts at 11 o'clock, as far as I remember. I hope I'm correct. So yes, so please join. It's going to be a katha for an hour, and then kirtan, and then prasadam at 1 o'clock. All right, so Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Lord Ramachandra ki jai, and Gita Acharya Appearance Day ki jai, Mahotsava ki jai. Thank you very much.
Venum Kvanvantam Aravinda Dalayatacham Barhavatam Samasitam Burasundarangam Kanda Pakotika Mania Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalan Driyavriti Manti Pashyanti Panti Karyanti Chiram Jaganti. Wow, is it that time already? My goodness. Amazing.
The devotees are making more elaborate decorations with vases, etc. So it's a little delayed. It's coming up soon. It's already been over.
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. O Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. There is great confusion, great confusion. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Srimad Prabhupada, Jaya Srimad, Jaya Srimad. We Guru Charana Padma Devalam. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe. His kind grace is Bhaktivedanta Samaraj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Paramahamsa Prabhupada Acharya Peace, Sant Guru Vaishnava Ji. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas. Friends, Krishna. Yay, Gangamaya Minamai Kida. Tabasam Bhakti Kida. Samaveta Bhakti Kida. Gita go Brahmanande. Haribo. All glorious is in the devotees. Glorious is in the devotees. Glorious is in the devotees. All glorious is forever glorious is in the devotees. Advaita Acharya appears in Mahamahotsava ki. The lotus feet of our spiritual master is the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. To bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and attain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is that my consciousness purified by the words emanating from the lotus. Attachment to the lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my dark eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth, from whom ecstatic premonition by him against his destroy. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, friend of the poor, Lord of master. O Master, please be merciful unto us and give us a shade of your lotus feet. Your fame spread all over the three worlds. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
I'm saying now you need to clarify those phrases which I read yesterday. Because if you don't clarify that, the next time you meet yourself.
So, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for attending. And we'll see you later.